But it is my privilege tonight to be introducing our keynote speaker. It is, often that you hear that one person can make a difference. And in the case of our speaker tonight, that is very, very true. José Antonio Vargas was born in the Philippines and came to this country when he was 12 years old. He grew up in the Bay Area and graduated from San Francisco State University. He's an immensely talented writer. He went into journalism, working for the San Francisco Chronicle, and later became a staff member of one of the nation's most prestigious newspapers, the Washington Post, at the ripe old age of 23. Just 3 years later, José won a Pulitzer Prize for the reporting that he did on the Virginia Tech shootings. That's the highest prize that you can receive in journalism. In short, he was a very successful young man with a limitless future, not so different from millions of other young Americans or from you all here tonight. But that all changed in June of 2011 when, inspired by the bravery of America's dreamers, he published a remarkably honest and incredibly courageous op-ed, an editorial, in the New York Times, which he revealed publicly for the first time that he was an undocumented immigrant. It is hard to overstate the impact of this piece. Virtually overnight, the story of the dreamers became real rather than just a policy debate to so many more people, especially in the mainstream media. José Antonio literally put a human face on the issue of young undocumented people in this country, and he himself became one of the faces of the issue. I'm not kidding. I have the Time magazine cover in which he is featured right here, leading the way on behalf of so many dreamers who, just like you, wanted a chance to contribute, to be educated, and to achieve their potential. Shortly after this cover was on newsstands, President Obama announced that he would be providing relief to undocumented students through the Deferred Arrival Action for Childhood Arrivals Program, DACA. There's no question in my mind that José Antonio Vargas played a key role in making that happen. And he has added activist to his title now, as well as filmmaker to his list of credentials. He continues to be an outspoken and eloquent voice for the undocumented and for immigration reform. He created an organization called Define American, whose mission is to keep telling the stories of aspiring Americans. And right now, he is in the middle of a national tour to promote his documentary film, which he wrote, and which he produced, and which he directed, and which will be featured soon on a major cable network. I told you he's a talented guy, and I mean it. Documented, which is the name of his movie, is a moving and powerful look at what undocumented young people go through in this country, and an unflinching examination of the consequences of a broken immigration system and of broken families. On a personal note, I would just say that it has been my pleasure to be a partner, to work side by side with José Antonio, as we have tried, me on behalf of the National Council La Raza, the largest civil rights and advocacy organization in this country, to promote a better way for our immigration system. And as we try to promote an inclusive way for all of those who believe in that American dream. I have seen many people who have been leaders on the front for immigration reform, but I know no one more courageous than José Antonio Vargas. Join me in welcoming him tonight as your keynote speaker.
Okay. That was the best introduction I've ever gotten. I have to tell you, by the way, the video that we just saw, I see a lot of videos. I'm a filmmaker, and so that was incredibly well done. We have to post that on Facebook. And so smile, can you? Like, smile. Cool. Okay, wait. My phone just crashed. Great. It is really my deep privilege to be here with you tonight. Thank you to Ramon and to Myra for making sure that for inviting me, and for Janet for that wonderful introduction. And she and I we've been texting just to make sure that I got here on time. I'm in the middle of a rather hectic travel schedule. I live in the USA, the United States of Airports. I've been in 15 cities in about 20 days. But I'm honored to be here to celebrate your commencement. And I'm also here to honor the commitment and public service of the Hispanic Development Fund and the supporters of the scholarship program, which has provided, as Ramon and Myra has told us, in this area for the past 30 years. 30 years awarding, $3 million and 3,000 scholarships. And tonight's, 248 recipients, all of you, are now part of that legacy. You're now a part of that history. And you are now a part of that responsibility. A part of that responsibility. Among the life lessons that I know you guys know in your heart is that we have a responsibility to each other. In the same way that the HDF felt and feels that it has a responsibility to help educate and provide all of you with a better future, I hope that you have and that you feel the responsibility to pay it forward. So, when you land a great job, when you make enough money, you got to give back, not just to HDF, but to your community. I actually wrote this speech last night, and I got a little emotional writing it. 14 years ago this month, I graduated from high school. 43 years ago, I'm 33, which for me is old. Actually, it's older when you're looking at me. I graduated in high school 14 years ago, and looking back now, high school was actually the toughest 4 years of my life. Let me back up. I was born in the Philippines. When I was 12, my mother decided that she was going to send me to America to live with my grandparents. My grandmother was a food server. She would be one of the food servers who have been serving us here tonight. Can you all applaud the food servers? My grandmother was a food server, and my grandfather was a security guard. They were both naturalized American citizens. When I got here, I was in the 6th grade. I was on ESL for 2 years. On my first day of school, I actually remember waiting outside of my homeroom. This white kid asked me, "What's up?" And I said, "The sky." I just didn't know about American slang. I remember when we played flag football, I ended up running to the opposite side. So we were like, that way. Well, there's no football in the Philippines. I didn't know what that was. And then I remember when we sang the national anthem for the first time, and I thought it actually said, "Oh, Jose, can you see?" So I was like, I just got here, and my name is in the national anthem. I loved being in America. I just loved all of these new things, right? And everybody was really confused by what my name is Jose, and I look like this. So when you see an Asian person with a last name like Ramirez, Salinas, or Vargas, it's called being Filipino. It's between me and you. But I remember when I was growing up, I didn't really think America had room for me. I had this big accent. I spoke with a really big Filipino accent, which is kind of like, Tagalog is a little bit like Spanish. And I just stood out in many, many ways. I was the kid that brought fish to school for lunch. And then 4 years later, my high school freshman year was really the most life-changing. I in English, in freshman English, we were assigned to read a book called The House on Mango Street by this Mexican-American writer named Sandra Cisneros. And, oh, yes, everybody, please clap for that. And I remember it was the first book I ever read that wasn't by a white person. And I remember specifically reading this passage. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9, a muddy collar. It is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving, songs like Sobbing. I remember reading this and thinking, oh, I can write like that. That has my rhythm. That sounds like me. That was the first time I actually thought that maybe I could be a writer, when I was reading Sandra Cisneros' words. And then a few months after I started reading this book, I went to the DMV like any 16-year-old. And then that's when I realized that the green card and the passport that my grandfather had saved up $4,500 to buy were fake. Because, my grandfather was, as I said, a security guard. He didn't make more than, $8, $9 his whole life, and he managed to save $4,500 so he could buy me those fake papers. So that's when I found out that the flag that I had been pledging allegiance to didn't actually belong to me. And that's when I found out that when people say illegal, they don't mean only Latinos, because for some reason we've completely stereotyped this whole issue. They actually are talking about me too, right? And back then, this was in 1997. There was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was no internet. I didn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell anybody. And to be honest with you, I was really mad at my mom. I was mad at my mother for putting me on this plane and never really telling me what was going to happen to me. She said if anybody ever asked, I should say that I was going to go to Disneyland. And then I realized that my grandfather's plan was for me to work under-the-table jobs, keep my head down, marry an American woman, and become a U.S. citizen. That was the plan. But by around sophomore year in high school, I knew that I was gay. I went out with girls, I tried to kiss girls, but I knew I was gay. And so for about a year and a half, I was in the closet about two things, being gay and being undocumented. So the third year, junior year, first period U.S. history class, I decided that I couldn't be in the closet about two things, and I had to get out of one of them. So after we saw a documentary on Harvey Milk, the great leader that is Harvey Milk, I raised my hand and told everybody I'm gay, and then ran out of the room. And then my girlfriend, Patricia, found out during brunch that this had happened. I was one of those kids that lived at school. I was a member of the debate team. I edited the school paper. I directed school plays and musicals. I was in student government. But when I was a junior and senior, while everybody around me was worrying about college, I just started writing for the newspaper, for my community newspaper. Because I thought that, when you see an article and it says by Jose Antonio Vargas, it's called a byline. And I thought, if I don't have the right papers to be in this country, what if I'm on the paper? I mean, I'm serious. Like, that was what I thought. I thought, if I could be on a piece of paper, how can they know that I'm not supposed to be? I'm on the paper, yo. I'm here. I didn't think of going to college. I never took the SATs. There was no DREAM Act. There was kind of no other way. And then I think my principal, who's like my mother figure in my life, she started finding out that, Jose is not going to college. So she called me into her office and she said, what do you mean you're not going to college? Oh, I'm just going to write for the paper. I'm going to cover homicides. No, we're going to go to college. I'm like, I can't go to college. What do you mean you can't go to college? I knew that my grandparents couldn't afford it. I knew that my mom didn't know what to do. My mother was in the Philippines. I hadn't seen her at that point. So I didn't tell my principal that, I don't have the right papers. So that's when the first time an adult found out. And then she told the superintendent, and then somehow the teachers started talking about it. And then somehow they found this rich guy. his name is Jim Strand, who made a lot of money on the internet, who started a scholarship fund the same year that I graduated from college. And he decided, without knowing me, without asking any questions about anything, that he was going to send me to college. So that's how I got to college. So this scholarship fund that is now called the Mountain View Community Scholarship Fund is in its 14th year. I was the first recipient in 2000. Now this scholarship fund has sent 225 students to college. Like you, most of them the first in their family to go to college, many of them not having the right papers to go to college. And I am now on the scholarship board of this scholarship fund. So when Ramon and Janet invited me to come here tonight, I feel like I'm looking at myself when I'm looking at you, and I feel like all those people from where I grew up are all around this room, believing in all of you, believing that we're one of the kids, that we're one of their kids, that we can do anything. And I have to tell you, if I were sitting where you are now, this is what I would tell myself. I would tell myself, and I'm telling you now, that you are more than pieces of papers or documents that you may or may not have. I would tell myself, and I'm telling you now, that there is room for you in America, that your reach is only limited by your imagination, and that your success is not defined by what you can buy or what degree you have. Your struggle defines who you are and what you become. Whatever it is you're going through, someone else is going through it, someone else has transcended it, someone else has survived it. Absolutely nobody, no one, struggles alone. I would tell myself, and I'm telling you now, to never be afraid to ask for help. Somehow, somewhere, someone will always help. When you hear a no, find a way to make it a yes. When a door shuts in front of you, find a window. I would tell myself, and I'm telling you now, to always honor the sacrifices of your family. It took me about a few years, until I was about 21 or 22 when I started working and making money, to understand the sacrifice of my own mother, putting me on that plane, giving me up, to make sure that I had a life that was better than hers. This August, it would be 21 years since we've seen each other. I can't leave because there's no guarantee I'd be allowed back. And she's been denied a tourist visa, and she's waiting for a visa to come here. Because as you know, if you're from the Philippines or Mexico or India, it's years and years and years before you can come to this country. Janet kindly mentioned this film that I'm working on, that I've been working on. It's called Documented. I have to leave for Chicago tomorrow because it's going to open in Chicago for a week, and then Denver. Then CNN is going to air the whole thing on June 29th before July 4th weekend. Thank you. We were talking to CNN because thankfully Game of Thrones is out that night. The season has ended, so I'm not competing with Game of Thrones. And so the CNN executives were like, we don't think there's been a movie with this much Tagalog and some Spanish on American television. I think they're right. And this scene that we're actually going to show you was shot in Miami during the first ever physical meeting of a group called Dreamers Moms. You know how you hear a lot about the Dream Act and Dreamers? Well, mothers of these dreamers got inspired, and they started their own Facebook group called Dreamers Moms. Check it out. So they decided to invite me to their first physical meeting, and this is the scene that we shot.
Yo creo que todos los que estamos acá y mucha gente que no está en este momento estamos unidos por lo mismo. Atrás en nuestro país quedaron muchas cosas, afectos, familia, costumbres. Pero bueno, decidimos dejar todo aquello para darles a ellos un mejor futuro. Si yo tuviera la oportunidad en este momento de mirar a la cara a los congresistas, al presidente, yo le preguntaría, ¿qué ven los ojos de sus hijos? eso mismo sienten los nuestros.
Muy bien.
I underestimated how much the death of Dr. Maya Angelou impacted me. In college, I was an African American Studies and Political Science major, and that's when I got to read people like Maya Angelou and James Baldwin, my favorite writer. And and then after I heard that Dr. Angelou had died, I started YouTubing everything I could find. And I found this amazing video of Maya Angelou talking about her friendship with James Baldwin, who was gay and black at a time in which America could only deal about the black part and didn't know what to do with the gay part. This was James Baldwin. And James Baldwin told Maya Angelou, her friend, this amazing quote. He said to her, "My sister, your crown has been bought and paid for. Your crown has been bought and paid for. Now you can love yourself. Wear it. You can love yourself." And I'm saying that to you because, to me, that quote, what Baldwin was trying to tell Dr. Angelou, was, may it be in the slave ships or our mothers and fathers that cross whatever border is in front of them, whatever seas they had to cross, whatever plane they had to catch, whatever they had to do, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents, they are doing everything they can and have done everything they can so we can love ourselves, so we can wear that crown, so we can give back. There's one last thing I want to make sure we do. I'm a firm believer that you find purpose when you find gratitude. You find purpose when you find gratitude. Thank you, to me, thank you, are the two most important words next to I love you. Because that's what you say to God. Thank you, right? So all of you here tonight, can you all stand up? Do me a favor, stand up. I want you to look around the room, and I want you to say thank you. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thank you.